What's up everyone, Pritch here, and today we're going to do a bit of a different video. Today is just going to be me talking about what I would consider the two hottest questions right now in Guild Wars 2, and that is first, is the Soo-Won meta, the Dragon Ends meta, too difficult? And then the second question that's always tied with that is it okay that the Siege Turtle mount is locked behind the completion of that meta event? So I'm just going to dive right into my thoughts and my opinions on that. First and foremost, do I think the Soo-Won fight is hard? Yes, absolutely. I think it's difficult content, 1,000,000%, and I love that. Do I think it is too hard? Absolutely not. I think it is completely fine the way that it's tuned in terms of its difficulty. And I'm gonna kind of dive into that real fast. So in Guild Wars 2, I think the absolute hardest thing you can do is rely on other people. And that is frankly what's happening is you need to rely on about 50 plus people to all do things relatively well. And I just kind of want to go through the mechanics of it though, because like the actual mechanics of the fights really aren't that difficult. They're not that crazy, right? Most of the mechanics can be summed up as if you see a giant red circle or a giant yellow circle or a giant yellow half the arena, don't stand in it. That's the majority of it. And then the other mechanics can be summed up as when you see the green circles, at least one person needs to stand in them. If you become a wisp, you need to mash spacebar until you're all the way back up at the arena gathering orbs. And I realize that I'm oversimplifying the green mechanic, and I say that because that's probably where the most amount of groups are struggling in terms of time loss. And if people are struggling and don't know what wisps things are, guys, I literally made a video that described all the mechanics in this meta event. Go ahead and throw that in your map chats. Have people go watch that before they do the meta so that if they are one of the people that get chosen as wisps, then they know what they're doing, right? And it's going to save you guys a little bit of time. But ArenaNet's also just nerfed that to, instead of 2 minutes, it's like 75 seconds or so. So they've basically given you guys an additional 45 seconds, even if you get stuck with somebody that ruins it for the rest of the group. And don't get me wrong, it feels bad, right? Like, it feels bad when 49 people know what they're doing and know how to do wisp mechanic, and one person doesn't, and they hold up the entire group. And at the end of the day, that's just going to come down to the average Guild Wars 2 player base needing to get better and knowing what to do and not trolling so hard. So that's my thought on the green mechanic. I think it's fine. I think it works. I wouldn't mind seeing the time reduced from 75 to just 1 minute just to help combat a little bit in case there are people actively trolling, trying to make a group fail, which I don't understand the thought and process behind that. You spend 2 hours in a map prepping it just to make sure people lose. I don't get that personally. But I realize that people will have the power and ability to screw with other people. So the kind of next set of mechanics, really, right? You go kill bosses at the same time. We've done that a million times. We all know how to do that. It's nowhere near as difficult as Octavine. And Octavine, I don't think is difficult. And then, with other things like the whirlpools, you just let people die, right? You don't need to break the bars. And also, speaking of break bars, they increased the duration of the stunned effect, or not stunned, but like the exposed effect when you break a defiance bar now from 10 seconds to 30 seconds, which means there's basically no reason that you should not phase the boss every time you break a CC bar. And that's another aspect of the game, right? That like you could even tell because they put a training area in the Seitung province, the first map location, where it literally teaches people what a defiance bar is and how to break it. Like they literally need to break it to progress in the story. So it's just another example of like, tell people like, hey, you need to do a break bar. You like when you see this, it needs to go down. And that's not a hard mechanic to understand or do or accomplish. In terms of the boss's actual, moves, and I want to... There is RNG to what the boss does. there is no getting around the fact that one group might immediately get a Defiance bar that's easy to break, and then you phase really quickly. And another group might get a wave into a wave, kind of attack where it's standing still for a while. And then another group might get the, all right, Dragon Dash, into Dragon Dash, into Dragon Dash, into Dragon Tail, right? Like where it's like, okay, I just spent, 40 seconds basically not being able to hit the boss because of the random RNG of the moves. The random RNG of the moves does suck. 1000%. It doesn't feel amazing. I wouldn't be opposed to I like that it's RNG and it's not set. I wouldn't mind if there was a limit, and maybe there already is for all I know. At a limit to the amount of moves or things that can happen before the boss has to get a Defiance bar, something like that, right? Like, if 7 moves have gone by and a Defiance bar has not been one of them, then the 8th one is going to be a Defiance bar, something like that, right? Just to make it a little more fair. Because if you just get nothing but Dragon Dashes and Dragon Tails, it's just inherently going to eat up your time because you need to do those mechanics of moving to the other side or dealing with a Dragon's Tail. And on the Dragon's Tail end, right? Again, in terms of the actual mechanics of this fight, it's not difficult. If a Dragon Tail is up, you go kill it. The end. That's not, that's not a wild mechanic. So what I think the most difficult part of the fight, all encompassing is, and what it comes down to, at least in my opinion, is you have 20 minutes to do the whole fight. The mechanics themselves are not that hard. The problem is everyone's ability to do damage in Guild Wars 2. And we have a gigantic gap in the player base. And what I mean by that is I want to describe the two ends of Guild Wars 2 players when it comes to being able to do damage in Guild Wars 2. On the low end, you have your grandma who has arthritis, who is just playing the game super casual and for fun, who doesn't have any build set up. Her armor's all over the place. Her stats are all over the place. She's using whatever abilities she thinks are fun, and she'll press them occasionally as well as auto attack sometimes. And standing still, just hitting something randomly, she's probably doing 1 to 2,000 DPS. That's the low end of the Guild Wars 2 player base spectrum. Now let's talk about the high end, super good raiders who are speed clearing content. They're doing, standing still, using their proper rotations, 40,000 plus DPS. Okay? So just think about that for a sec, guys. That's the gap in the Guild Wars 2 player base in terms of damage potential and what can be done in this game. So when the devs are creating content for Guild Wars 2 players and they are deeming it end game content for players who have been playing their game and know how to play their game well, they can't just tune it for your 1 to 2,000k DPS players. They have to tune it knowing that they have player bases that are doing 40 plus K. All right? And obviously, they haven't created this so that it's just the 40k plus, members that are able to complete this content, right? In my opinion, it's, 20 to 25k, right? They have that middle ground where it's like, if you're able to do decent damage on your build, like, you can complete this meta. But I just want to throw that concept out there that, like, I think the reason that people find it so difficult is, simply put, most of the player base in the community just aren't running builds or doing damage to the point that that's acceptable to complete it. And so the question, I think, comes down to, is that okay? Is it okay to have a meta that basically requires you to run high damage builds and know your class? My argument, I think absolutely so. I think that is 100% an okay, fun, and good thing. I do. I don't think after 10 years of a game being out that the end game huge last map meta for the entire 10-year anniversary saga of how dragons are dying needs to end in an easy way. It's okay to make people have to know their class, their DPS rotations, how to do break bars, which, by the way, you can just easily complete all the break bars using electromagnetic pulses from the way stations, which I also think is fine. That's been in the game for a while, and people should, at this point, doing metas, know how to use them because they're dropped in every meta all the time for Defiance bars. So all that to say, I think at the end of the day, the biggest struggle is that players don't know how to do damage. And the training golem has been in the aerodrome for a while now. There are training things in the Seitung province that are going to help people a little bit. And at the end of the day, this content is geared for people that know how to do rotations and know how to do damage. And I think that is 1,000,000% good and a good thing for an end game 10-year sort of content thing. Does that mean... It basically means that the average Guild Wars 2 player needs to get better at the rotations and their builds. And I don't think forcing people to do that is a bad thing at all. It's a crazy, like, I don't understand the idea behind I want to play this game casually, but I am entitled to beat all the content casually. No part of me believes that. No part of me thinks that open world content needs to be exclusively for casual people either. And if you do believe that, I'd love to know in the comments why and why you think open world content must be for casual players and casual players only. And again, let me be very clear. I don't think that the Soo-Won meta is geared exclusively for high-end raiders. Like, you can do very mediocre damage, and by mediocre, again, I'm going to just throw out there, like, if you're doing a DPS golem, 20 to 25k DPS. That's enough to beat the Soo-Won meta pretty much. And that's not crazy numbers. 40k plus is crazy freaking numbers. And so, I don't know. I like where it's at. I like where the Soo-Won meta is at. I like the difficulty of it. I like that you need to be able to do damage. I like that there are mechanics that you basically need to do. I like that there's variety in that, you know, you have different options for dealing with the ads, right? You can ignore the ads completely, bring stability. You can kill just the Thorn Hearts because those are the annoying ones that are constantly knocking people down. You can kill all the ads and just make your lives really easy, but you're wasting time killing ads, and so it's like this give and take of how you want to deal with the ads, right? I like the different strats that can come from that. As well as I just learned from reading the patch notes that apparently the people that do greens and become wisps and then get back to the top have a huge damage buff. So it's actually a good strategy to let your DPS players be the ones in the greens and don't put your supports in the greens. That way you can just phase quicker. All that to say, I think the meta is fantastic. I love it a lot. I think the Guild Wars 2 player base is going to have a lot of growing pains from it. But eventually people are it's going to force people to learn their classes. At the end of the day, it's going to force people to learn classes. And again, for those that, you know, feel like they just have no idea or don't know how to do that, I would highly recommend Snow Crows. I'll put a link in the description for you guys. But let's move on to the second question. And that's kind of, I think, so the second question is it okay that the Siege Turtle mount is locked behind the completion of the Soo-Won meta? And this right here is basically the reason that everyone is trying to do the Soo-Won meta. That, or they just think it's super fun. And if you think it's super fun, then obviously you love it. My answer to that is I think it is absolutely okay, and I think it's cool, and I think it's fun. The reason I say that is because it makes it so rewarding to beat it. And on top of making it so rewarding to beat it, it incentivizes the player base to beat it, which incentivizes the player base to get better at Guild Wars 2. And I think that is a beautiful thing in the game. Is the Siege Turtle mandatory to have? Absolutely not. Does the vast majority of the Guild Wars 2 player base love their mounts and want to ride a turtle? Absolutely. There is a huge difference between wanting it and this, like, what I feel like when I read on Reddit and some YouTube comments, it's this like almost air of entitlement where it feels like the Guild Wars 2 player base, I shouldn't say all the player base, right? I'm exaggerating. I'm seeing posts from people in like Reddit, on Twitter, YouTube comments, things like that, where it feels like people feel entitled to the turtle at a casual level. And what I mean by casual is, essentially saying, because the Soo-Won meta forces people to know their rotations and DPS to do mediocre to good damage, it's not accessible to the casual players, which means the casual players that don't want to learn their classes and just want to, play whatever they want, whatever armor they want, screw stats, screw abilities and rotations. They don't have access to it because they can't beat it because they don't do enough damage. Is it okay that they've locked a turtle mount behind being good, essentially? Well, I mean, like, I don't know how else to put that. Being good at your class and the game. Abso-freaking-lutely, in my opinion. I am 100% okay, and I think it is a good thing that it's locked behind hard content. No one is entitled to anything in any video game, right? And in the vast majority of video games, if you want the cool new shiny thing, especially in a video game that's been out for years and years, you need to do something difficult. No one is entitled to a turtle mount, guys. And if you want your turtle mount, learn your class, learn your specs, get really good, and help the community in the same way, right? Join maps, make sure people know Snowcrow's stuff, help them know what a break bar is, show them my video if you feel like that would be helpful to people to just see the mechanics and know how to do the wisps and know how to do a defiance bar and know what a tail is and know the difference between a wave attack and a dash attack, which is just arrows. But yeah, at the end of the day, guys, I think the Soo-Won meta fight is hard. I think it is hard in a good way, and I love how hard it is. I don't think it's too hard at all. I wouldn't mind seeing the RNG aspect of which abilities Soo-Won will do tweaked a little bit so that you don't have the possibility of getting extremely screwed with like dash attack, tail, dash attack, tail, dash attack, dash attack, dash attack, tail, right? Like I don't... there's RNG to it that I think could screw over some teams that are doing the mechanics properly and well. That I wouldn't mind seeing tweaked, but other than that, I think the fight's fine. And I think that the total health pool, compared to the amount of time that you have to beat it, is completely fine. I think the amount of damage required to beat it is completely fine. That's my thought on that. I think it is totally fine that the Siege Turtle is locked behind the completion of this meta. I think it incentivizes the player base, especially the casuals that want to ride a turtle, and I know there's a million of them. It really incentivizes them to get good at their class, to do mechanics. And the best part of it is you can't just do the mechanics. You literally need to know how to do damage on whatever class you're playing. And I think that that's a beautiful thing to try to teach people in Guild Wars 2, because I think the average Guild Wars 2 casual is not good at doing damage at all. Like, guys, the difference between doing 2,000 damage and 40,000 damage, it literally would take 20 of the first person to do the same as one of a good raider, right? Like, just think about that in terms of the player count and the numbers, right? It's okay to try to make that, to try and incentivize that gap to be smaller, to try and incentivize the lower end of the Guild Wars 2 community to do better and to know their classes a little bit better, especially after being a game for 10 years, guys. This has been out for 10 years. It's okay to have an end game open world meta that is difficult for everybody. All right, that's my thoughts. That's my little rant. I just wanted to give my thoughts and opinions because I've heard a lot of people basically being upset about it, and I get this like air of entitlement, and I don't know, it bugs me the wrong way. And I think it's great that there's super hard end game content right now in Dragon's End. That's going to be it for the video. Thank you so much for listening to my TED Talk. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are in general. If you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong. This isn't like oh, you're an idiot. Can't believe you would think that. Like, guys, it's okay that people have different opinions. I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. Just like, let's make sure we're civil about it, though. Like, you know, this isn't gonna devolve into, oh my gosh, you freaking blue shirt, short hair looking idiot. 8 concussions looking MO or mofo. Guys, it's earlier in the morning. I can't think or talk. I just want to give my thoughts and opinions. I hope you guys enjoyed. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I'll catch you all in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.